Yes, people, what is going on? Welcome to the very first podcast on Fight Game Insider. Just going to keep it real short and sweet for you guys today. I was here with my boy Jimmy, going to be talking about some of the fights that went down last weekend, a few of the upcoming fights, and yeah, he's having a bit of a chin wag. So let's go from the top. This past weekend, we had Max Holloway versus the Korean Zombie. Jim, what were your thoughts, my man?
Yes, mate. So it was different to what I thought. I thought we were going to have the standard Max Holloway, just obliterates him with volume, absolutely takes him out, just dismantles him like that. That's what I thought was going to happen. I was surprised by Zombie's way that he came out. You could tell when he was doing it, he was looking for just the right time and he was just unloading then. He was just going with a massive load of punches to try and catch him. And there was a couple times he got close to it. I thought this is going to be good, but it's
Mm,
just that Holloway chin, man. He doesn't go down. And then when he came out, yeah, for that third round, I thought, to me it felt like someone who said, "This is my last round,
yeah,
win or lose, I'm going out." Like he must have knew before the fight that this was going to be his retirement. Perfect time. He had the crowd that wanted to hype him up. He came out, and that third round, for as long as it lasted, was a madness. When I was watching
right.
that, I was like, "Oh my god, someone is going down." And I don't know. I was thinking about it earlier. I can't recall the last time Holloway put someone out like that.
No,
Like,
no, it was a long time.
yeah, it's been a while since we've seen something like that happen from Max. So that was good for him to get that. But yeah, I mean, not the best way, I'm guessing, for Zombie that he wants to go out. He would want to obviously go out with a win,
For sure.
but that crowd, man. Then just hear him at the end when they were chanting Zombie and doing for the song. That was a proper good way for him to go out. But yeah, I enjoyed the fight, but I expected Holloway to get the win. Just I didn't think it was going to be like that.
For sure. Yeah, I mean it was a pretty hectic crowd. They're obviously pro zombie, pro Max as well. I thought it was really cool how Reebok allowed the fighters to wear that like Hawaii shirt, the UFC Hawaii shirt, because obviously everything that was going on there. But no, the fight itself, it's like I kind of you expect Max to win, right? Especially when you
Yeah,
look at the trajectory. I mean, Max is 18-0 against every featherweight there's ever been, minus Alexander Volkanovski, or at least in the UFC that is. So when you look at the trajectories, obviously, Holloway's coming off a win over Arnold Allen, who was like what 19-1, um, and then it's just back-to-back wins for him, minus Volkanovski. And then you look at the Korean Zombie. I mean, he's had an insane career. He's had some, fights for the ages, but he was coming off that pretty dominant loss to Volkanovski. And then we all remember the infamous knockout against Yair Rodriguez, right? So it's at that point in his career where his chin is kind of questionable. So I feel like coming into it, I mean, even he probably had a good idea that this may not go my way, but I think he knew, as you say, it was his last fight. I mean, he actually retired after the Volk fight, so I would have liked to have seen him walk off into the sunset from that fight. So when I saw it was announced that he was fighting Max, part of me was like, "Oh man, really?" But at the same time, I think it was Max that said Zombie was one of the only people from like his era, because he's kind of like the slightly older generation, that he hadn't fought. So great way to go out, amazing fight. But as you said, the third round, that was just crazy. He came out all guns blazing.
yeah, he made that entertaining. The one thing I was thinking that when the fight ended, obviously all the thing, the crowd was all great. It's the sort of situation with Whitaker before his last fight when it was like, what do we do now? Because he's lost to the champ like a couple times. And the last fight with Holloway and Volkanovski was just like, it wasn't really much of a contest. I thought Volkanovski absolutely swept him with that.
Yeah,
And it's like, what do you do? Because you can't keep giving Max people to fight that are going to potentially fight Volk. Because if he keeps beating them, then there's nothing there. So the people Max would have to fight would be people that aren't contenders.
mm,
That's what my issue is what do you do? And there's obviously Volkanovski wants to go and fight again at lightweight, which is fair enough. But what does Max do? Does he stay there hoping that he goes up and then he fights for that title? Does he try and go up himself? It's like, what do you do in that position now? Well, it's happening quite a lot as well. Like with the what's it called, Sterling and his mate, I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
oh
Merab.
Marab, yeah.
Yeah, like with that situation as well, like there has to be something you have to think of. What do they do at this point now with Holloway beating everyone except the
Yeah.
champ?
It's a sticky situation, to be fair. I know I've seen Alexander Volkanovski express a lot of almost like frustration with the Holloway situation, where he literally quote for quote said like, "Stop taking out my contenders," because it's annoying for Volkanovski. But yeah, sticky for Max. And in his most recent post-fight interview after the zombie fight, he literally said that he's prepared to claw and scramble his way back to the top. Lightweight, fair play, but featherweight, it's just, do we want to see a 4 fight between them? I'm not too sure. Obviously, you got guys in the wing like Ilia Topuria, undefeated, and then Mosav, surname I can't pronounce, who's like 17-0, the Russian dude that just beat Diego Lopez. But yeah, obviously you got those guys there, but for Volkanovski, they're his fresh challenges. So it's like, who do you want to see them face? But I don't know how it plays out. I mean, the one time we did see Max go up to lightweight, the most recent attempt was against Dustin Poirier. And I think it was the thing that stuck out to me in that fight was how much Dustin's power carried in that weight division. The only time that you've really seen Max on wobbly legs was, in my opinion, that Dustin fight. And there was actually a point in that fight specifically where if it wasn't for the cage, he would have been dropped. But as you say, pound for pound, one of the best chins in MMA, I would say, for Max anyway.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with that going forward. But I did enjoy the fight between them. I'm glad Zombie got the ovation that he did from the crowd before he went. It was a good way for him to go, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with Max going forward.
100%, man. So yeah, with that being said, let's jump on to the next fight. We're not going to go over all the fights. It wasn't the biggest card in the world, but I think Erin Blanchfield versus Taila Santos is definitely a fight that we need to talk about. It kind of went under the radar in a way. I didn't hear a lot of people talking about it, but as far as women's mixed martial arts go, it was one of the high level fights out there. Obviously, you had Taila Santos, 19-1, going into her fight against Valentina Shevchenko. And if it wasn't for that accidental headbutt that happened, I think she takes the win. I think if it wasn't for that one incident in that fight with the clash of heads, Taila Santos is the new flyweight champion. And the whole trajectory changes. So I was a little bit sad for Taila to see that, second loss in a row, especially after such an impressive streak to get to the title shot, and then such an unfortunate, event to happen during the fight. But at the same time, Erin Blanchfield, she's definitely a huge prospect to watch. I'll be honest, she's only come onto my radar in recent sort of months, within the last year. It was the Molly McCann fight where she really made a name for herself, at least in my eyes. And I was like, oh, okay, who's this? And then she obviously took on Jessica Andrade, really good performance there too. I was really impressed with her striking because, primarily she's known as more of a grappler. And we know that Jessica Andrade has a huge right hand. So I was impressed to see how she fared on the feet as well. But yeah, it's great to see Erin get the win. A little bit sad for Taila. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I watched it earlier today. What I loved about Blanchfield was she reminded me so much of Colby Covington, where she was throwing the striking, mixing it with the wrestling, but just that work rate as well that she was putting in. Even in the third round, I think there's a bit she had her against the cage. She went down to try and take her down, came up, did a couple strikes, straight back down to that. For the other fight, it must be so suffocating having to have someone just constantly doing that to you, someone that's just not slowing down. I mean, the striking I didn't think was the cleanest that it could have been. Maybe that's something she's going to work on. I think, but there was a good shot she caught with at the end, really wobbled her. But I was impressed by just the work rate alone, and I think that could be problems. I mean, Shevchenko and Grasso, has that been announced for the rematch? I don't know if it's not. I'm guessing it'll be their next
that
fight.
has.
Yeah, so I'm guessing that's what she'll have kept an eye on. So maybe she goes in next for that. I don't know what they're going to do with that. I'd imagine Shevchenko to win that. I rate her super highly. I know you like. I always say her technique, everything. I'd probably say is pound for pound one of the best in the UFC. Like how she does things, I think it's just amazing. I was really surprised she didn't win the last fight, but yeah, I think all attention will be turned to that. I would like to say I would imagine Shevchenko wins, but I thought that last time as well, so I'll probably be wrong with that. But Blanchfield, I was impressed watching her. I thought she's a real workhorse in there.
100%. And when you're looking for a prospect with championship potential, cardio is one of the most important things. You could be a great competitor in the first 1 or 2 rounds, but when you reach the championship rounds, that's what makes a champion. And the first thing that comes to my mind was Zabit Nurmagomedov Sharipov. Obviously, he's retired now. I think he's gone to be a doctor or something. But he was a prime example of someone who had all the skills in the toolbox, but when it reached the later rounds, he just didn't have the cardio, or at least from the performances he showed, that he could really carry that into the fourth and fifth round. So I think, yeah, seeing the pressure that you mentioned that Erin was putting on Taylor, it's definitely a green flag and something that I want to see going forward. As far as Shevchenko goes, I don't want to speak too soon, but obviously controversial fight against Taylor, took an L against Alexa Grasso. In all fairness, Shevchenko was winning that fight, not by a huge margin, but I would say she was winning that fight up until the rear naked choke. It was actually quite funny. I think a video circled afterwards of Alexa practicing the rear naked choke in that exact sequence. I mean, if you go and watch it back, how quickly Grasso capitalized. I think it was a spinning back kick that Shevchenko went for. Boom, she was on the back. And I think where Grasso is mostly known for her striking, I think that caught Shevchenko off guard a little bit, and the rest is history. But yeah, definitely an interesting dynamic for the flyweight division.
Yeah, I'd like to say it's going to be interesting to see what they do next, whether they put Blanchfield against someone else before then, or if she's just now going to be called the number one contender after that fight happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited to see how she does.
100%, man. So let's jump on to the next fight. So we're going to take a little bit of a pivot into the boxing world. Most recently, Alexander Usyk in the heavyweight division taking on Daniel Dubois. So I had mixed emotions when this fight was announced. I think, the one that most people were gunning for was the unification bout against him and Fury. Who knows what goes on behind closed doors? We only see what's put out on social media, and it seems like a bit of a shit show, if you ask me. But it was cool to see Daniel step up to the plate. Relatively competitive fight up until the controversial low blow. Jim, what are your thoughts on the low blow?
Mate, I have no idea what to think. When I watched it, I have to go, and I watched it in real time. I thought it was the knockdown, and what frustrated me a bit is it seemed the ref hesitated. It seemed like he got hit down, and then when he then sort of said it was a low blow, the ref was like, "Oh, okay." The ref didn't automatically run over and call it and say, "Yeah, it's a low blow." Like stand over there. It was seen a little bit of hesitation, which to me is like, did you do it just by his reaction, or did you really feel a lot? When I saw it, I thought that was a genuine body shot. But then when I've looked at the photos after, it does look a bit low. So, but there's one angle where it doesn't. There's one angle where it does. You've got Frank Warren saying it was definitely a low blow. I heard Tony Bellew earlier saying it absolutely wasn't. I mean, it all depends on what the ref said. Has the ref told him before that the belt line is fine, or has he said it's here or there? We don't know. Well, they didn't say that in the ring. Maybe they said that before. But just before we get too much into that, U6 boxing is so. I just
Another
love to
level.
watch someone like that. It's so amazing. His jab was so on point. Just the way he moves in and out, he makes people second guess so much. And people like Dubois, people like Joshua are perfect for him to fight, because if he takes away their power, which is their main thing, his movement, then they can't keep up with that kind of movement. They're then second guessing themselves, and he's then wearing them down. He's so good to watch like that. So I was extremely impressed. I know some people were saying he didn't look as good, which I don't really understand. I thought he looked amazing. I thought Dubois did as good as he could. I didn't really, in my opinion, think he deserved that fight. Just my opinion, but obviously he went in there, he did what he can. The low blow thing, I just don't know. Like I say, real time, I thought it was, but looking back, some of it looked low, some angles don't. At the end of the day, I don't think they'll overturn anything. I don't think they'll order a rematch from it. I don't think it's going to be like that, but I can understand why Dubois might be a bit annoyed. He did complain a lot, Usyk, about all the low blows.
Yeah.
And we know that he doesn't like shots to the body as well. So,
this is
it's hard to say.
And that was one of Frank Warren's main points. And if you watch the post-fight interview, like in the ring back, one of the main things that stuck out to me was Frank saying that body shots were one of the main focuses in the training camp for Dubois, because they'd seen holes in his game, or at least like a vulnerability around the body area. So it's like, if that was true, it plays into the storyline and what happened. But then even if that wasn't the case, it's the perfect narrative to try and play. So I can see both sides, but hats off to both men. As you say, Usyk is just an absolute beauty to watch. It's like art. And I think what makes him stand out so much, and what makes him so successful in the heavyweight division, being a smaller guy, is his IQ. you know, a lot of people, as you say, were saying that it wasn't his best performance. But I think you have to bear in mind that fighters, especially at that level, tailor their game plan to that fighter. So it's a very
Yeah.
different fight for Usyk going in to face Joshua than it is to face, you know, a Daniel Dubois. And if we see the Fury fight, that's also going to look a hell of a lot different.
Do you think Fury looked at that fight and thought, I think he's got a better chance now? Do you think he looked at that and thought, this is mine? Or do you think he was like, well, because I think he's going to look at that and be like, yeah, get me in there. I think someone like Fury is going to be so hard because with Usyk, if you're bigger than him, but you're normally slower, which he's
Mm,
then great at countering and everything like that. But Fury's so nimble, so agile in there at the size as well. He can lean on Usyk if he wants to try and wear him out, if he can get hold of
yeah,
him. If not, he can do the whole movement and make it hard for Usyk with the range and everything there. And it's a big difference. He's like what, 6'8", 6'9". He's
big
massive,
boy.
Fury. You've seen him, the size of him. People
The
forget about that because
arms.
obviously everyone he fights, like when he fought Wilder, Wilder's a big guy. So you don't look at him and think, but when he stands next to Usyk, everyone will see just how big he is.
Mm.
And that's the way he moves as well. Like Fury, as much as people like to clown him with what he does and he's fighting in Gane, like not what I really want to see, but like he is as good as it gets. And I
Yeah.
feel he's going to look at that performance and think this would be a perfect time to get in there.
Exactly, easy money. But yeah, I'd like to see that fight. I definitely feel like Usyk's stock has risen, and you know, I know a lot of the pros, the veterans in the boxing game, aren't too happy about the Ngannou fight. I think that's a walk in the park for Fury personally, because it is a completely different ball game. Of course, Francis does have the equalizer at any given moment; he can put anyone's lights out. But I think, yeah, Fury's tin has been tried and tested on the war grounds. Deontay Wilder first fight being a prime example.
Yeah, I don't think I think as well as good as Fury is. I think the thing is the MMA people they want to go into boxing like it's a whole different game. Like boxing and MMA and boxing in a ring is just not the same. And
Yeah.
unless like and obviously they say Ngannou's he's boxed before and that was how he started and fair enough. But if you've not been doing it constantly, just focusing on that like Fury has, like these boxers have, when you get in there, it's a different. It's like the whole McGregor Mayweather thing. Like McGregor was so
Exactly.
good at that time; he was like untouchable. Everyone thought he was just like he was invincible. And he went in there, and a lot of people say like, yeah, he went the rounds of that. But I personally just think Mayweather could have ended that any time. The way he walked,
Yeah.
like, when did Mayweather ever walk forward with his hands up and just walk forward to someone? Never. He was
Mm,
always backing up. He was real like boxers. He was always towards the end of his career backing up, making sure he was playing safe, doing his defense. But really, he was just walking towards him. Like
literally.
there's a difference when it's that high level. I think he's going to easily go through and go on. I don't really think he needs to do it, but again, great payday for both of them. So that's what they sort of prize fighters. But yeah, I think that's going to be an easy one, and I'd just love to see Usyk and Fury. But if not, I'd love to see Joshua and Wilder. If the whole Fury and Usyk thing, because I think that's someone's got to go.
It's been years in
You
the
know,
making.
like someone is getting knocked out in that fight, and I can't wait to see that.
Oh, it's not lasting that one. I think it's interesting as well how they're both coming off knockout wins over Robert Helenius. At
Yeah,
first, when you know Dylan White tested positive for whatever he tested positive for, and it was called off, I was a bit like, oh, really? But then I saw the rebooking with Robert Helenius, who was actually coming off a fight the week prior. So, you know, real quick turnaround time. Clearly the cashish was pretty good for that one. But yeah, it just adds spice to the story with Joshua also getting an emphatic knockout of Robert Helenius. And it's just interesting seeing their approaches. Obviously, Deontay Wilder was being pressured on the back foot, really close inside right hook. There wasn't really much loading up going on and moving backwards, which is typically where you're going to be weaker in your shots. And he
yeah.
put Hellenius out cold with his eyes open. It was interesting to see Joshua's performance up until that point. I did think he was winning. I did think Joshua was winning, but I don't think he was ahead as much as one would imagine Joshua to be.
Wasn't as comfortable as he would like it to be.
For sure. I think it was actually a good, I don't want to say tune up because that, you know, discredits Robert Helenius, but in terms of like body types, Robert Helenius very tall, similar stature and build to Wilder. So I feel like that's probably it's good training and a good test for him if he were to go into the Wilder fight now. But some of the shots that Joshua was getting caught with in that fight, you just can't let Wilder do that, man. It's gonna be game over.
Yeah, I really want to see that fight. And I know there's been that talk Joshua's been saying about in Saudi Arabia, they're going to try and do Joshua Wilder
Mm,
and then Fury Usyk. I personally think there's going to be a clash of egos. Joshua ain't going to want to take. I mean, it has to be Fury and Usyk as the main event because it's for the titles. It has to be.
yeah.
but is Wilder and Joshua really want to be co-main?
This
I
is
don't
it.
know. I think there's a lot in it, and obviously the promoters get involved as well. They want their people to be the top fighter. Like boxing is always like that. But obviously that'd be interesting to see. But moving away from that, there's one thing I did want to speak to you about, which is Sean O'Malley, because we didn't get to talk
Mm,
too much about that, and not just that, but the division as well, because that's another one. Because I was thinking O'Malley, I don't want to see him against Sterling again. As horrible as that is, he deserves the rematch. But it's just for
I
me, he's just
agree.
not someone
Poor
I want to see
Sterling,
that
but I
fight.
agree.
But Sandhagen or Merab, one of those two, they either fight each other and the winner fights O'Malley, or he fights one of them. Sandhagen, my preference, because I think that's a
Stand-up
fight
classic.
between striking. Like I love
Yeah.
striking, and I think that would be amazing. But also, what Merab did to Jan, it's quite hard to say like he doesn't deserve it, because Jan at one point we all thought he was just the best, and then
Yeah.
Merab just ragdolled him for the whole fight, and I was like, whoa, that was impressive. So it depends. I wanted to know what you think in terms of one O'Malley's performance, and also who you think he should then go up against next.
100%. I mean, Murab on paper, he's giving me Leon Edwards vibes, clear number one contender, but he's not the most marketable. And obviously, being a very wrestling and grappling heavy style, not necessarily a fan favorite. But if anyone deserves it, I think it is Murab. I'm a Sugar fan, so if I'm in a Sugar game, I don't want to see Murab because I feel like that's his strong point. Clash of
Yeah,
wrestler versus striker, classic matchup. But Sean's out here. I mean, he said in his post-fight interview, he's here till 2035. So he's here for the long game. If he wants to be one of the greats, like he says he is, he has to go out there and prove that he can really take out any kind of style. If he's going to, get any preparation in for Murab, I think Aljo was a great test for that, because his performance in that fight, for as long as it lasted, was on point. It was a clear game plan for each. Stays on the feet, O'Malley's got the advantage, goes to the ground, it could be over. So it was really a case of Aljo trying to push him up against the fence. And obviously, once you're up against the fence, easy for him to take him down. And you saw that playing out. But what I was really impressed with from O'Malley is his evasion and, bobbing left to right and ability to circle back to the center. That was really impressive. Had it gone 4 or 5 rounds in, and would he still be able to do that? He would have definitely tied. He wouldn't be as effective, but then also Sterling would have been, a little bit more tired. But yeah, it would have been interesting to see if that played out a little bit longer. I think O'Malley's performance was on point. As you say, Corey Sandhagen, another really deserving contender, one of my favorites in the division as well. So I'd love to see a battle between them both. And the thing is with both guys, not only are they strikers, they have some of the highest IQ in the division, the ability to
yeah,
read
what I'm thinking.
situations. It's going to be a high level chess match that fight if it comes to fruition.
Yeah, O'Malley Sandhagen would be my like number one I'd want to see, regardless of who deserves it. Like I think that is, like when Sandhagen fought Jan, when you see two strikers that good with
Yeah,
that high IQ and that ability, like I think as well with how O'Malley fights, I think that's like a Tekken fight or something like that. Something you see on a game, like
literally.
some madness that you'll just see. So I want to see that fight, regardless whether it's for the title, whenever it is. I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, I was really impressed with O'Malley. That way he finished that fight, like his precision, he's always been like that. He's always just been
Mm,
on point. Throws great power as well, and it's just his frame as well. He's got that such like that skinny big frame where you don't think like a Tommy Hearn, where you don't think
mm.
they've got that power, and then they crack him, and then it's like, oh my god. So yeah, I was impressed with it. Also interested to see what happens next. I think Sterling with the weight cut will probably go up. Maybe he want to stay and get a payday fight against O'Malley, but I think he probably goes up now.
I think it makes sense, and I do feel bad for Sterling in a way because I think was it tied most defenses in bantamweight history, or even the most. I can't remember, but going into this fight, there was a lot of talk about Sterling being the greatest bantamweight of all time. I understand that argument when you look at the records, but when you break down each fight individually, there's a lot of controversy, wasn't there? I mean, obviously the first Peter Yan fight with the illegal knee, which is the only reason that he got the rematch. And it's like if the knee hadn't happened, he would have probably lost. And then in the rematch, you had the close decision. And then you had the TJ
Dillashaw.
incident with the popped out shoulder. And it's like haters are always going to say, oh, well, he was injured anyway. And he had a really close fight with Cejudo. And now this happens. So it's like, yeah, on paper, when you look at it from afar, Aljo's done fantastic for himself. I mean, going into that fight, I think he was 23-3. phenomenal fighter. But yeah, I just feel a bit bad for him. If he does move up, I wish him the best. But he's definitely giving away a lot of his attributes if he were to move up a division.
Yeah, I think for the weight cut, you can tell he's struggling. So it'll be interesting. I mean, there's some interesting fights from up there as well. I mean, maybe the power's going to come into it. Maybe it'll be a slight Holloway sort of situation where he goes up, but he just can't cope with the power. But it'll be interesting
Yeah,
to see. I think he should do that. No disrespect to him. Like I say, I know obviously I'm pro striking. Like it's just a thing in England, isn't it? We didn't really grow up with the whole wrestling base,
this
so
is
we
it.
love to see the striking. I think that's just kind of what that is. But all props to him. But yeah, I think he should go up, and I'd like to see O'Malley either fight Merab or Sandhagen next.
100%, man. Couldn't agree more. Cool. So last topic of the day before we wrap this one up. So the next UFC card we have on our hands is Cyril Gane versus Sergey Spivak. Obviously, Cyril Gane, undefeated French prodigy, comes up just short in his fight, his first title attempt against Francis Ngannou, going for the heel hook, I believe it was, in the final round, where it's pretty much 50-50, giving Ngannou top position for the majority of the round and essentially losing the title, facing his first professional defeat. And then we all saw what happened with John Jones. So I'm a Cyril Gane fan. I really wish him the best, but Sergey Spivak has been on a tear as well. Obviously, got knocked out in the first round pretty devastatingly by Tom Aspinall a little while ago. But since then, he's been on an absolute tear. Most recently taking out Derek Lewis. How do you think this plays out, Jim?
I mean, I can't bet against Cyril unless you have a strong wrestler. He's so slick in there. He's so smooth in and out. Again, another big guy that's very agile, fights like he's a middleweight.
Yeah,
I find it hard, but again, when it's heavyweights, it just takes one shot. It's just it's hard for me to put against Cyril. I know it sounds not amazing in terms of the fact that he lost to John Jones. He's lost a
yeah,
couple of his fights. Like when someone's lost a couple of fights, you think, oh, okay, this is a downfall. How will that affect him mentally? I think is a big part. But yeah, I would back him to get that. I just think he's
yeah,
amazing how he fights. He's great to see. But like you say, Spivak also, apart from the Tom Aspinall thing, he's been getting his wins. He's been getting it done.
yeah.
Hard to always call the heavyweight fights. I never really know. It's really one of those ones where how they are on the night. But again, I mean, I'm interested to see how this plays out. But if I was betting, I'd put it on Cyril.
For sure, man. And similar to O'Malley, the IQ is just up there with the highest. I know he was a 13-0 Muay Thai fighter before coming into the world of MMA. Minus a few questionable back of the head shots, Cyril's definitely up there in my favorite fighters. And as you say, it's interesting after a fighter takes their first loss for sure, but also their first title attempt, just mentally, how are they going to come back from that? And I was pretty confident in Cyril as far as mentality goes. He seems like a very chilled out, stoic dude. His return fight, obviously being against Tai Tuivasa, which, let's be honest, what a barn burner that was. That was an absolute fight for the ages. Cyril won pretty dominantly, but Tai had his moments, dropped him for the first time in his career, gave us a bit of entertainment. And I think it was UFC Paris. I don't know if it was the first UFC Paris. For some reason, I'm thinking it could be, but yeah, I'm with Cyril on this one. We'll see how it plays out, but yeah, really excited for the upcoming UFC card.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see for sure. But I'm not gonna say I'm looking at some other divisions. I'm seeing what they're going to do. There's obviously the McGregor thing. Is he going to come back soon? I
Yeah.
don't know.
Well,
It's
I think
McGregor.
they've just announced it,
As long
haven't
as
they? With Michael Chandler this December, I think. Pretty sure it's been announced. Hopefully, but again, it's one of them ones where until
but
they're in the
yeah,
octagon, you just don't know.
I don't know. Like, when he sets out to do it, if they do start doing the press conferences and they start doing that, then I'll believe it. Because McGregor, when he says he's going to do it and he's going to fight, he turns up the fight. Like, whether injured or not, fair enough. But
Yeah.
you just can't trust him until he gets there. Is he going to get arrested? Is he going to do this and do that? Like,
Mm,
I do love McGregor. I actually do like as much as he can be a dickhead. I do love him. I think he's great for what he did. I remember when he was on this thing, like it was amazing to see. But like, just get back in there, man. I know, obviously, he broke his leg. Like, it's not that simple to just sort of get back in there. Maybe there's a mental thing for him as well. Like, he puts on
for
such
sure.
this who he is as McGregor. Maybe there's that mental thing for him about getting back in there and throwing those kicks and having to go through that again. Maybe that happens, but yeah, I think Chandler as well will stand and bang with him. I think he knows the score, he knows the game, he knows what's up.
Yeah.
He's going to go in there and get a big fight and get that get that money and see what he does. But yeah, next week, Cyril Gane, I think he gets it done, and I'll be interested to see. I'm interested to see how he does it. Like I say, is it going to be a one where he's not quite there, and it's going to be a hard fought winner? Or is he going to go and then he's back to his old self, and it's like, yeah, he's back.
Exactly, man. But we will see, and I'm sure we'll meet you here this time again next week to catch up on everything that went down, talk about the Cyril fight, chat about the rest of the card, etc., and everything upcoming in the mixed martial arts world. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on the Fight Game Insider first podcast. Hope you enjoyed. This has been Jack. This has been Jim, and until next time, see ya.
See you soon.